Hey,
How's
we
it
are
going,
live.
everybody? We are back.
We are back and ready for some goodness.
Goodness, movie talking time. And Efren, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Gary. It's been a nice holiday weekend.
Yes, how was your fourth?
My fourth was good. It I spent it sleeping in a little bit, and
Mm,
then had to run to the store to buy some supplies, food supplies, and other supplies for the house. And so did some of that, and then had some people over, cooked some food, of course,
mm,
burgers,
nice.
dogs, had chips, had the little America cookies, like the sugar frosted
Oh,
cookie things,
nice.
yeah, and the stuff like that. So had that, watched the two movies back to back,
You got to do it. Yeah.
and then played Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and beat up
Oh,
on my guest.
cool. Yeah, right on. I
How was
was
yours?
in I was in my hometown of Wilmington, North Carolina. Got to spend some time with my dad and my brother. It was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And ate way too much food. I'm paying for it today. I have not eaten at all today. It's 12:15. I'm not even a bit hungry because I ate so much stuff this weekend. I am still miserable from all the food, and I say that without regret, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and watch the two movies as well. My dad does not have a Blu-ray player, nor does he have Wi-Fi.
Oh no.
um, so there was no way to stream on his TV Jaws or Independence Day. Um, so on Saturday, we were hanging out. My dad put together these two little kiddie pools for the kids. I sent
Mm-hmm.
you a picture of it,
Yeah, yeah,
and I put a chair in one of them, and I sat in that little kiddie pool watching Jaws on my phone on the
yes.
Fourth of July. Uh, I made it happen. And then last night, the wife and I watched Independence Day. It was after the Fourth, but still Fourth of July weekend, and that movie is a blast every time. You know,
Yes,
so
that sounds awesome. The fact that you were
I've
in a kiddie pool and did all that is even better.
it's probably the closest I'll ever get to floating in the water watching it, which is on my bucket list to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but last night the wife and I watched Independence Day. Got really fired up. I forgot how much I loved the ending with Randy Quaid.
Yeah,
You know, hello boys, I'm back. I was just like, I guess like you were way too excited about this movie. I was like, this is America right here.
that's right. It may be
Yeah,
America propaganda, but man, it did a
yeah,
good job.
yeah. I know, right? But I wanted to show you and our viewers something from my trip, if you didn't mind.
Oh, please go ahead.
Let's see here. As you know, Efren, I went on a field trip
Mm-hmm.
right there while I was in Wilmington,
Oh,
and yeah,
yes.
that for our viewers is the farmhouse used in the 1990 classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Um, that farmhouse that they filmed at, where they go to April O'Neil's house, is 14 miles from my dad's house, the house I grew up in. So me and my
Wow,
brother took a field trip, and I got a picture. So
that's awesome.
wanted to show you all. Yeah, my brother tried to tell me that it wasn't the house, and I was like, "You're wrong." He goes, "You've been saying it since we were kids. It was the house. It's not the house." And I was like, "Yes, it is." And I showed him facts on the internet, and I was like, "Let's go see it." So he has a new truck and all that. So I was like, "We'll take your new truck." So me and the bro, we went to the Ninja Turtle
Hmm.
house, and we get there, and he said, "I'll be danged, it is the Ninja Turtle house." So
That's
I
right,
had to
man.
get
I
it.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's like don't question me on these things. That's what I told him. We're standing there in front of the house. I'm arguing with him. I was like, don't question me on these things, dude. But it was cool. It was cool to go see that. I hadn't seen it since I don't know, probably was in high school.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, little hometown stuff there.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah, it was fun.
That's fantastic. It's one of those things like seeing that is just like, oh, this is so great. Now I
Yeah.
want to go. I feel like I
Hey,
need to go to Wilmington with you so we can go see this house.
I'm always down for a road trip home. So just say
Yeah.
when.
So
Yeah.
did they have like tours or anything through the house, or is it just like here it is?
I don't think so. I think it's just there. They put a fence up and like a little white fence, and it had a sign that says "No trespassing." The whole area is videotaped or whatever.
Uh huh.
Um, so I don't know what because I've seen people like go and take pictures and stuff, but I'm not sure how they do that. Maybe
Right.
gotta
Right.
call. It's in a town called Curry,
Huh.
and or maybe gotta call the town folk there and see. You
Yeah.
know.
Can we look inside, please? Please.
Yeah, yeah. I did find out a fun fact. And we got to move on, but the part where Casey Jones falls off the swing,
Hmm.
that actually was in the back of the house on the second level.
Oh,
Yeah. So
huh.
fun facts. So
Is it still broken? See, that'd be nice if it's just sitting there
that'd
broken
be
still.
cool. It is all staying intact. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. They filmed some other stuff there. I never really heard of it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So
I think it's just, and that's supposed to be upstate New York or something, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
there it is in Wilmington.
and yeah, 14 miles from Wilmington, right there in rural North Carolina.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. So, um, so so you talk about your Independence Day viewing, your Jaws viewing, dude. For us, it was great because the people we had over, I had the Vanda boys,
yeah,
and they, let's see, I'm trying to think. Two of them have never seen either one of them,
oh wow,
and one of them
okay.
has seen one of them. And
Okay.
I think one of them, the oldest one, he saw Independence Day, but I don't think he ever actually saw Jaws, or at least not the whole thing. The other two did not see Independence Day or Jaws, so it was like a complete surprise for them the whole time.
Oh, I bet that
And
was fun.
yeah, it was great. The youngest one was hilarious because when we started Jaws, we watched Jaws first, of course, and when we started Jaws. He goes, "Oh yeah, I've seen clips of this movie. Yeah, everything looks so fake in this movie." And then I
Oh,
kid you not, 4 times he jumped because he got scared. And I'm like, "Take that, fake
nice.
boy."
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Watch, Spielberg will show you how wrong you are.
That's right.
Oh, that's cool.
And
Man, I have not. I don't think I've ever, except for my first viewing of Independence Day. I don't think I've ever watched those movies with someone who hasn't seen it before.
mhm.
That's pretty cool.
And
Wow.
pretty rare actually,
Yeah,
because like
very rare.
it usually by now people have at least seen it somewhere at some point, but they hadn't,
Hmm.
and so
Oh
that
wow.
made the viewing a lot more fun. And they were just like, "Well," like, and just seeing them because they've never seen Jaws, seeing them
Hmm.
still in awe of that movie from 1970
Yeah.
whatever. I'm just like, "Yep." It just shows you this
40,
movie's still good.
40 years later.
Yep. And they're
Wow.
still just like, "Whoa, what a movie!" I'm like,
Mm,
"Exactly." And then of course I had them
nice.
stay for the shortest end credits ever in that movie because
Yeah.
there's like not a whole lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
So
cool. Very cool.
yeah, so it was good. It was fun.
Nice. Yeah. Those are, I mean, they're necessary viewing on 4th of July weekend. They really
Hmm.
are. And
Doesn't have to be on the fourth, but just the
just
around
around
the
the time.
fourth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had not sat and watched Independence Day in a long time until last
Hmm.
night. And I was just like, Megan was on her phone playing a game or something, and the part where the dog came up, and I was like, Megan, watch the dog, watch the dog. And she's just like, you're so stupid. I was like, the best dog ever.
Yes,
Yeah,
I did that with these guys too.
yeah,
I'm like, "Here it comes,
yeah,
guys. Y'all, I know y'all saw the
yeah,
show. Here it comes."
yeah, yeah,
And they're just like, what?"
yeah. And I love how I don't want to go. I know we talked about these movies last week a lot, but
Yeah.
millions of people leaving Los Angeles. Vivica A. Fox just happened to find the one closet.
Yeah.
That, you know,
And the
great,
dog is
great.
straight chilling. I ain't worried
Yeah,
about
like,
it.
huh?
Dog,
Yeah,
that dog is the OG. Like,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
They should have took the dog with them to space.
yeah,
Just Goldblum and Will Smith.
yeah.
He would have
The dog
handled
would have been sitting in the seat when they opened up the shield, and they had to
it.
hide.
Yeah,
He's just
yeah,
sitting there like, "What you gonna do about it?"
yeah.
Like, that's
The
the kind of
alien's
dog
just
he
like, we surrender. We surrender.
is.
Yeah. Oh man.
uh,
So have you watched anything new in the past week or so, or just
um,
the necessary viewings?
the necessary viewings is pretty much what I watched. I did want to bring up because you asked me 2 weeks ago what we watched new, and I forgot about it. Katie and I found The Soloist on Amazon,
Oh,
with starring Jamie Foxx and Robert
yeah.
Downey Jr. and based on a true story.
Mhm.
Really, really good movie. Really
Yeah,
good.
you guys brought that up while we were at dinner the other night. I need to
Hmm.
check that out. You said it's on Amazon.
Yeah, it was on Amazon, Amazon
Yeah,
Prime. So I mean,
nice.
it was free. So it was
Check that
really
out.
good. So that's probably the newest thing. I started watching Jurassic Park last night, but because I'm
Mm,
a softie, I didn't make it. I had to go to bed. But
understand.
but but no, I haven't really watched anything new other than those
Hmm.
viewings. So, but I
Yeah,
guess Soloist 2 weeks ago I did watch, and that was really
yeah.
good.
I have to check that out. I've always wanted to see it. I watched the necessary viewings of Jaws and Independence Day, but I did watch on Friday night.
Hmm.
I couldn't sleep. I pulled up on YouTube MLB Network did an amazing documentary on King Griffey Jr.
Ooh.
I did watch that, and I love a documentary,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
on beloved sports figures, and
And Ken
it was
Griffey's a good
very
one.
it was very well done.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I may have gotten on eBay to try to find some Griffey shoes, and then quickly got off eBay because they were expensive.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man, I had a pair of
yeah.
Griffey's
Oh,
back
nice.
in, was it middle school? I can't remember if it was middle school, maybe like fifth, sixth grade for our
Hmm.
baseball, for when I was playing
Oh,
baseball. So I got some Griffey's and I loved them. Of course, they were the metal cleats, so it was just like
oh,
it
yes.
was the Griffey's where like you could have the plastic cleats, but you could switch them out for metal cleats, the ones that you
Sick,
screw. You remember? Yeah.
sick.
So those are the ones I
Yeah,
had back in the day. Oh man, I
yeah.
loved them.
Uh,
Those are
he
such
was
great cleats.
the first baseball player to have his own shoe. I think he was one of the first. I think it
Really?
was like him. That's what they tell in the documentary. Him and Frank Thomas were like the first ones to start that.
Huh?
Yeah,
Did not know
because
that.
like, yeah, yep,
Well, as you
good
should.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was so I was that kid. Sorry for the side note, but I was that kid that I had the Griffey cleats, the Chipper Jones glove,
Oh man,
and then the
Mizuno.
Frank
Yeah.
yep, and then the Frank Thomas batting gloves. Like
Oh,
that was
the
my get up.
yeah, dude, that's awesome right there. The big hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so that was my get up, and it was just like, are you gonna make a decision on who you're following? And I just said yes. I
Yeah.
was like, all
Hey,
this stuff is cool.
that's three good ones right there.
Uh-huh.
Three good ones. Three that I'm pretty certain did not use steroids, by the way. So you
Yeah.
chose wisely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were. I mean, different
Yeah.
times. I have different
Yeah.
baseball heroes than people now, but that's because of when you
Hmm.
grow up. So
Yep. There you go.
yeah, the Jones brother. I mean, obviously being a Braves fan, the
Hmm.
Joneses, man,
Andrew
Andrew and
Jones,
Chipper,
Andrew.
too.
I was at. I know we got to get moving, but I miss baseball. My first Major League Baseball game ever that I went and saw in person in Turner Field, year 2000. Andrew, how you say it, hit his 100th career home run,
Mm.
and I was there. He pointed up to me and said, "That's for you." I'm just kidding.
No, he did. He
That's for
did.
you. He did. He said, "That's for
Yeah.
you."
All right.
Oh man,
Well, we're not a baseball
baseball.
channel.
Yeah,
We could talk about baseball. Not a baseball channel.
baseball.
Baseball.
So, yeah.
Um,
So.
but here we go. Back to our moviness.
Hmm.
And so as we going on, so today's topic, I mean, you see in the description we have, we just called it our channel standards, and we just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of revisit the idea of why we're doing this channel, but also like what our standards are and what you can expect from us, from your real pastors when we're reviewing movies, talking about movies, things like that, because we like this isn't something that we're saying everyone who watches us has to abide by. We're not
No.
saying that, like, we're not saying this is what you should do if you're a true Christian or blah, blah. Listen, we're just telling you what we do and what our standards are and what you can expect from us in this channel or on
Yes.
this channel. So you know what you're getting when you watch us and what you're not getting when you watch us. So that's really just kind of the focus of today, and that we want to kind of talk through just so we're all on the same page. And again, just so you know what to expect.
Hmm. Yep. And we're not saying, like I said, this is our how we carry ourselves and how
Hmm.
we got to be true to ourselves, true to our faith, and and this is how we go about things. And we're not saying, if you watch certain movies, we're not condemning you or anything, or not
Hmm.
condemning any filmmakers. We're just saying this is how we do it. I call it my movie viewing protocol.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because like we said, just a great segue there, Gary. Like we said
Thank you.
before, and may just remind you guys, like with our channel, we want to be what we feel is the proper like medium, like the half, like the compromise, I guess, if you will, because we don't want to be like, oh, if you watch certain movies, like I seriously saw this one guy talk about how you're not a real Christian if you watch Disney movies because of
Yeah.
what Disney stands for, and we're just like, come on, man,
Yeah.
like that's not us at all. Like we're not saying like if you watch a certain Pixar movie or something, it's like, oh well, you're a terrible Christian. Like that's not us. But we're also not on the other end where it's like you can accept everything and everything
Yeah.
is fine and who
Watch
cares.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and that's not us either. So we wanted to be that medium, the halfway point where
Hmm.
where it's like, all right, like we feel that as Christians and pastors and stuff, this is probably where whoops, I'm hitting my microphone. This is probably where we should be, but it isn't. But you can still like kind of be in the world, but not of it, I guess is the best way to
Yes.
put it.
Yes, indeed. That first thing you talked about with, watching Disney, blah, blah,
Hmm.
stuff like that is what drove me personally away from the church for a long time.
Hmm.
Because that's what I had ingrained in me for as a child, as a kid, was like, well, if you have this, if you do this, then this, and I was like, I just can't handle that. It's just too many do's and
Rules.
don'ts.
Yeah.
Yeah, too many rules, and um, yeah. So yeah, like I said, that the medium, the middle ground, you know, and I think we all know personally what we should and shouldn't do or
Yeah.
and view, you know. Um,
Hmm.
so
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're watching us, at any point in the day and you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not a Christian, my standards are different. Listen, that's fine.
that's
Like,
fine.
again, we're talking about us as Christians
Hmm.
and what you're going to get from us. And so
Hmm.
even if you're not a Christian and you're like, man, I don't really care for all the extra stuff. I don't really care for excessive things like we'll get into later. Or
Hmm.
if you're just like, maybe certain reviewers I don't care for because they are a little over the top with things that they do and say, but you're
Hmm.
just looking for something a little bit more family friendly, if you will, or just like a little bit more down to earth, and that's why you're watching us. First of all, great, thanks for watching
Hey.
us. But don't take this as you need to step it up. No, again, this is just
No.
us, and so And then if you want to tell other people about us, then you can also just tell
Please
them, hey,
do.
here's what please do, and then here's what these guys are doing, and here's what they stand for and stuff.
Hmm.
So you'll even have more information to spread the news.
Yes. Yes.
So, so I guess I'll start this off. Um,
Okay.
so with why we don't watch certain movies. Again, as pastors, so obviously it goes back to the what does God say, what does His Scripture say, and stuff like that. And this is just for information. So I'm going to try to just go quickly over this because I don't want to bog you guys down with Scripture. But like, so the first one that I just think of, again, that's kind of a standard for us is this verse, Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
Hmm.
And so it's really just saying like, listen, like what we have in our hearts, that's how we're going to act. That's going to determine our personality. That's going to determine how we talk, how we treat people, everything. Whatever's in our heart, that's what's going to come out. So this is why Solomon, one of the wisest people ever, wrote this, and he's like, listen, we have to guard our hearts because everything we do, who we are, how people will know us, that is how that's what's going to be coming out. So whatever we put in, that's what we come out. And then specifically talking about movies, here's this verse from Matthew. This is Jesus talking. So if Jesus talking for us as pastors, we got to listen. He says the eye is the lamp of
Yes.
the body. Yeah. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And so so here's Jesus telling us like, hey, listen, our eye, what we look at, the things that we see, and this isn't just movies, TV shows, books,
Yeah.
social
Music.
media, memes, like it can be anything. Whatever we can look at with our eyes, we are putting into our body, and what is in our body as well is our heart. And so whatever we put in, like that is what's going to determine what's in us because there's that connection to our soul and to our heart. So this is one way to protect our hearts because whatever we put in, that's what's going to come out.
Yeah.
And so again, as pastors, we look at verses like that, and there's others, but those are just two
Hmm.
main ones I think of. That
Yeah.
when we have that, it's like, all right, so it's we need to be careful about what we look at.
Yeah. What we see, it matters because I feel like our eyes, it creates a memory, you
Hmm.
know, and our minds are very, um, extreme things, and and what we see matters. What we see gets recorded in our memory and our mind, and we can go against it, absolutely. But a lot of times, sometimes we're bombarded with things,
Hmm.
but we control what we see, what we do,
Yeah.
um, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. Is creating some type of standard personally of what comes inside here.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where it comes at. So Gary, do you want to go ahead and kick off our kind of the
Yeah.
four categories of what we look
Yes.
at?
Yes. So we put this together this morning, just four categories of things. When I personally, and I think everyone's very similar. When I see there's a movie I haven't seen and I think about watching it, I look at content. You know, IMDb has a good parental advisory thing.
Hmm.
I know you had talked about another one. I can't remember what it was. You go to.
Yeah, yeah. There's two, Plugged In
Yeah,
and
yeah. Kids. Okay.
KidsInMind.com. So
Yeah.
those are the two because I prefer Kids in Mind because they don't give you an opinion of the movie. They just list everything that's in there.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
that's why I prefer
And,
that one.
and the first thing I look for is sin glorification. A movie that is just outright glorifying sin.
Hmm.
And sometimes, and I think there's a difference between a movie trying to talk about the destruction
Hmm.
of following sin, and they may have characters doing things that are is bad, but at the end of the day, it tells a story. It says, look what happens when you go down this path. I talked about a movie last week where it shows the destruction and the dark side of greed and pride.
Hmm.
There's a difference between a story like that than a story just saying, this is great, this is fun. A lot of our comedies that we see today are very much like this, where it's just a
Hmm.
complete glorification of sin. And you can usually tell from a trailer what
Yeah.
a movie is trying to do.
Yeah.
Um, and, so that's something I look for. One of the first things I look for is it just
Hmm.
completely glorifying a sinful lifestyle.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree, and that's where I think that's also the difference of what we've talked about before. Of like, are you trying to make a good movie, or are you trying to
Hmm.
like just send a message? And a lot of
Hmm.
times, movies that want to glorify sin, they're just trying to send a message of, hey, this is okay, this is fun, this is how life should be, and
Yeah.
or these are the things you should find funny. And so
Hmm.
you kind of see
Yeah.
that kind of thing, like play like it is, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, movies since they started making movies always have a message.
Hmm.
Every single movie has a message,
Hmm.
and so that's when you get the difference of, is this, are you just trying to make a movie and show what happens, or like trying to tell a story and that message that way, or is your message saying like, hey, here's life and it's hilarious, laugh at it, like,
Yeah.
or whatever it
Yeah.
could be. I mean, not just
Yeah.
comedies, but
Yep. Yep.
so.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one that we're looking at is what we're looking at, thick or unnecessary cussing.
Hmm.
This is one that bothers both Gary and I, and maybe you kind of see a theme too. It's like when you stick stuff
Hmm.
in there just to stick it in there,
Yeah.
like it's like we can understand for instance, like there are certain movies that are out there that they're trying to portray a certain culture or
Hmm.
a certain time in a period piece or something. And yeah, there is cussing in it, but you know what? That is the culture. They're just showing you
Hmm.
how these people live. And you
Hmm.
got to remember, with movies, like most movies aren't giving you a Christian perspective. So since it's not coming from a Christian or Christian's perspective, they're just trying to tell the story as it is. They're trying to be as real as possible. And when you see that, it's like, okay, you can kind of understand the language that they use and why they use it and stuff like that. But there are some movies that they will use language just to get a R rating,
Yeah.
or or just to get a PG-13 rating or whatever rating they want. Like they'll use it just to use it, just so they can have it. And it's just like that's when we were just like, okay, it gets unnecessary because now you're sticking words in places that don't even make sense. It doesn't
Yeah.
flow, and it's just it is it's that unnecessary cussing. Because listen,
Yeah.
Gary and I, we both understand, like, especially like we work with teenagers.
Hmm.
Teenagers hear way worse at school than they probably will in most movies. Like, we get that. But
Yeah.
there's a difference between saying, I'm going to go watch this movie that has all this unnecessary cussing, and putting yourself in that situation, and just
Hmm.
being in an environment where you don't have a choice but
Hmm.
to hear it around you, and you can kind of just try to block it out and to go about your day. Like, so there's two big difference there when it comes to that.
Oh yeah.
But you don't want to stick yourself in that scenario.
Yeah. And this is one I've struggled with throughout my life, honestly. Um, there's been times I probably should have been more mindful of it. Efren and I, were similar. I grew up going to my dad's softball games, hanging out in the dugouts. I grew up in locker rooms. I worked
Mm-hmm.
retail, construction. I worked in a mechanic shop. I heard just the most awful things from
Yeah.
growing up. And in my part of my life, I use language like that, and well, I've kind of become numb to it over
Mm-hmm.
time. So there will be times I'll be watching a movie and not even realize it, And what happened not that long ago, I was watching a movie and it was downstairs, and Megan, my wife was like, "Can you turn that off?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, I just can't handle all that cussing. And I was like, "Oh man, I didn't even realize."
Yeah.
It's just eye opening because it does matter. And there are movies that, like you said, like a war movie,
Hmm.
like a Saving Private Ryan, stuff like that. There's language in that, and mainly because I during D-Day, I don't think they were saying, "Oh, good golly, these bombs are everywhere,"
Yeah. Oh, there's
or
bullets flying over my head.
yeah, or darn
Gosh
it, Roy
darn.
just got his head blown off. But there's just other movies, and I've had to, stop watching movies that I've really enjoyed, really loved,
Hmm.
because it did have that just so unnecessary amount of language in it, and I think a lot of times directors, writers will try to use that excuse of realism in
Hmm.
some movies, but at the same time, I think it is just to say, look how cool I am, look how edgy I am.
Yeah.
It's cool to cuss.
Yeah.
Um,
You know
but
when it's forced and when it's real.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and like a scene comes to mind with a couple sitting at a diner and they're just f this, f that, f this, and movie I watched all the time. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't think that is how normal people talk in a public place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe so, I don't know, but like,
Yeah.
but war, construction sites are one thing, but having coffee and
Yeah.
eggs saying, F and F and F and F and this,
Yeah.
it's
Well, that's
come
the
on
same
now.
thing. It's like when I worked as an electrician. I mean, yeah, I heard like cussing all the time, but it was never like you said to that extent. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, they used all the words, but it wasn't.
Hmm.
It wasn't just like a normal conversation, blah, 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 like that. Like
Yeah.
I never heard it like that. And these are again guys who
Hmm.
aren't Christians; they're construction
Hmm.
guys. And the
Hmm.
same with like on sports team, like all the stuff you kind of said. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we've
Yeah.
been around it, but I've never heard anyone talk like this. And that's when it's just like,
Yeah.
it's even that take you out of the movie thing. It's like
Yes.
oh come on, like why? Like there's no need for
Hmm.
all that. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Like you can tell when they do it just for
Hmm.
rating's sake, or if they do it
Hmm.
for because they really are trying to portray, like you said, a war movie. Here's what
Yeah.
happens. Like
Which
there's a
I
difference.
truly don't understand the whole I have to get an R rating mindset, because I think and maybe it's changed over time, but I feel like that kind of hurts your movie, honestly,
Yeah,
than it does helping it. That's just my
yeah.
opinion, though.
Well, because that just goes back to what we've always talked about. Make the movie you want with a good story,
Hmm.
and then let the rating stuff figure
Yeah.
itself out later. Like
Hmm.
that. Don't worry about the rating. Worry about telling a good story.
Yeah.
And that honestly, that point will come back up
Hmm.
in a couple points here. But go ahead.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So,
No.
but I think the key word there is unnecessary.
Yeah.
So,
Unnecessary.
did you really need those 40 cuss words when the guy was just buying coffee? you know. Oh man.
Well, it's the best
Uh,
coffee ever, man. He had to get it
yeah.
right.
Yeah. There you go. That's the effing best coffee of effing times. Like,
Yeah.
geez, Louise.
I
Come on
know.
now.
Come on. Yeah.
But yeah, I've tried to be more mindful of that the older I've gotten, and of course, having kids running around, and
Yeah.
growing in Christ. You just don't want to hear stuff like that.
You definitely start paying attention to things a lot more than you did when you were a teenager.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
and remember, there is a time where, as we call it, there was a BC Gary and a BC
Oh
Efren.
yeah, yeah.
So that's why,
Wow.
like, we weren't always what you're seeing right now.
Mm-mm.
There was a time where we were both pretty sketchy. So,
Yeah, there's
like,
yeah. And a lot of times what I was just talking about, I was the one using that language.
yeah,
I remember my friend
yeah.
Alex one time, who was, he's become a follower of Christ in his recent years, and I remember one time, this is when we were in high school, he was like, "Dude, can you like watch your mouth?" I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
and he was pretty foul, so to hear that from him
Hmm.
said a lot. And I'll say that with pride, by the way. Just
Yeah.
laughing in my shame.
Again, BC Gary.
Yes,
It's
yes.
not saying like this was good. He's just saying like,
No, yeah,
listen,
yeah.
this is where I was. Here's where I am now. Like,
Boom. There you go.
yeah. So moving on to the next. Here you go, Gary.
Yes. The one I look for. Wait, it sounded weird. When I look to see if I'm gonna watch a movie or not, this is the first thing I look to see if it has,
Hmm.
because I completely avoid this in my life. Because I don't want to go on a tangent, but I know how weak we as men, we as people can be. Our
Hmm.
flesh is weak, and erotic nudity in movies is just a no go for me. And if
Hmm.
I see a movie has it, I don't watch it. I don't own it. And just I just can't bring it in because we don't have a picture for it, but 1 Corinthians 6:18, Paul says, "Flee from sexual immorality." That is
Hmm.
to run from it because of that weakness, And I've been burned by this over in my life where I'd watch a movie despite it having these things and thinking, "Oh, I can handle it," and then next thing you know, just going down a dark path.
Hmm.
So this is one of the first things I look for in a movie if I'm going to watch it or not. Usually, I'm a big Netflix guy.
Hmm.
If Netflix comes out with a show and I see TVMA, I usually just don't even bother. I think you've told me that before, the same,
Yeah.
because it's probably going to have a lot of this in it. And
Yeah.
I think what is sad is our culture has bought in. We're obsessed with culture is obsessed with sex, and filmmakers, movie makers have discovered that, and they believe it sells, and so they'll add it on there. You know,
Hmm. Which unfortunately, it does sell. So
yeah,
I mean, it sells all over the world. Like
it
it
really
does
does.
sell, and yeah, and this is something that we have to avoid. Like it's just like there's just like we talked about earlier with eyes the lamp of the body and guard your
Hmm.
heart, and then now with just all the scientific studies of what looking at pornographic images does to our brain, and especially as men who we're visual men. Like that's what we do.
Yep.
Like we see something, we get aroused in different kinds of ways. All right, not just a sexual way, but like we
Yeah.
get a rise in us for certain things. Like even if we see a sweet car, we're like, whoa. Like so I mean, because we're visual people. That's just how it
Yeah.
is.
Very
And
much.
and and
So
so
watch out for Efren and cars. I'm sorry.
sorry. Yeah. But
Efren, Park, guard your
yeah,
eyes. I'm
that's
sorry.
right. Hey, listen, how many husbands
Yeah.
have gotten in trouble because they see a sweet car, they go to a car dealership, they buy it, they come home, and wife is like, "What are you doing?"
That
And
is
it was like,
true. It's
"But it
because
looks
I
nice."
saw it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
saw it. It looked good. So
Yeah.
us guys, we get in trouble over our eyes quite a bit,
No
and
doubt. No doubt.
yeah, so we have to be careful with it.
Hmm.
There's a reason why again all over scriptures. It's just like no lusting, no look.
Hmm.
Be careful what you look at. All this kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all over scripture. So we got to be careful
Yeah.
with these kinds of things. And then of course, when like if you're dating someone, once you're married, you don't want to be sitting there watching a movie and having this movie star get naked, and then now your significant other, your spouse, feels
Yeah.
inferior because you're
Yeah.
looking at this person on screen. It just adds to problems.
It's
It-
embarrassing too. You know,
yeah,
like if Megan and I are watching something, and there's a scene. It's just like, oh, this is embarrassing.
yeah,
And
yeah. And
there,
having
there's
daughters,
yes,
as well. It's
yes,
like, it changes a lot, but
changes that perspective totally because it's like this lady has a dad out there, you know.
yeah.
Um, and and this is one that I've had to get rid of certain movies in my collection, and it hurt.
Hmm.
One of my favorite movies of all time has such an unnecessary scene in it, and it just goes on a little too long, and I had to get rid of it.
Hmm.
And for the reasons we already talked about, but also, I watched this movie as a kid, and I've had struggles in my life, and Efren, I told you this before. It was like, I was terrified of my son Carter one day watching it because it was on my shelf, and
Hmm.
then him going down the same path because it all started with that one scene in that one movie. I would never
Yeah.
forget myself for that. Can't guard him, can't protect him, can't be a helicopter parent, but I can control what goes on
Yeah.
the 70-inch TV downstairs. you
That's
know,
right. Yeah.
um,
Because that's the
and
last thing your son needs to see is anything like that on 70 inches.
exactly, exactly. And I wanted to, I put this together. I wanted to specify erotic nudity,
Uh-huh.
because there's some things. It's not often, but there's some things out there that is there, but it's all about the content and the
Hmm.
lens of it. We don't want to see any of it, but I think of a movie like Schindler's List, you
Hmm.
know, which is a historical masterpiece of a movie. It has nudity in it, but not in this way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because it's telling a historical story of what happened. You
Yeah.
know, and so there's a difference there. You know,
Well, and even in something
um,
like Schindler's List, like you're talking about people who were being starved to death,
yes,
and
yeah, it's not,
like it's
yeah.
not like they're trying to
If
get a
you're
rise out of you. Like,
Yeah, if you no pun intended.
yeah.
If you're if you're watching that movie for that, then you need to seek help. You
Yeah.
know,
You probably should
um,
seek help if you're just watching movies for any kind of nudity, but like,
that's true. That's
but
true. Yeah, indeed. But
yeah,
it's yeah, it's an important thing, and we as men, as followers of Christ, is we got to be mindful of it for sure.
yeah, yeah. It's something that we have to keep in mind and look at because honestly, the majority of the time it is like you say, this erotic nudity. Like there isn't
Hmm.
very many
Hmm.
historical type of stuff like what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, so there really
Have
isn't
you?
much of that anyway. So
Yeah, and one thing I noticed as I got older that a lot of the movies I grew up watching had it in there, and then you'll revisit
mhm.
it as an adult. You're like, oh man, really? Come on.
Yeah, which almost like you forget about it because it wasn't
Yeah,
what. Because that's the thing.
wasn't
That's
why
the
you were
thing
watching
too.
it.
Yeah, like you're not watching it for that, but you don't
Hmm.
realize it, and you don't realize what you're taking in, which is
Hmm.
another dangerous spot to be.
Yes,
You
very
don't even
dangerous.
realize what you're taking in any category of what we're talking
Hmm.
about. Um,
Yep.
you don't realize what you're putting in, and then the next thing you know, you're acting a certain way. You're like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I
And
know.
then one of the ways you can do that is, oh, look what I've been watching.
Hmm.
So,
Guard
um,
your heart.
yeah. So our last kind of category here is violence glorification. This goes along a lot with what we were talking about in the language category.
Hmm.
Like we understand, like listen, this world's violent. Heck, so much of scripture is violent. All right,
Oh yeah.
like like we understand like violence. Like if a movie has violence, we're not saying you shouldn't watch it, but it's like when they're taking like violence is the masterpiece in this movie. Like they were trying to take violence and glorify it like it's something good. And
Hmm.
I don't think anybody would try to say like, violence is the best way. This is why I appreciate like the Marvel movies. You have these superheroes who are very violent and
Hmm.
trying to save the world, but there's still consequences to that violence, which led to like Civil War and all that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
So even
Hmm.
then, there was like they're still not trying to glorify the violence because, oh, sorry, because of just of the consequences that come from it.
Hmm.
Even if you're trying to do something good violently, there's still consequences and people that can
Yeah.
suffer from it. Um, but there are movies out there that, again, they want the R rating, so they're
Hmm.
gory for no reason, or they have the extreme violence for no reason, um, or it's just, or the whole movie is just, hey, here's this awesome person, he's the baddest man alive, and look at him just destroy everyone for the sake
Yeah.
of destroying everyone. Like
Hmm.
it's like, come on, man, why do we need that? Like
Yeah.
again, using the war movie analogy, like it happened. It's a
Hmm.
war, and this like I think of like Hacksaw Ridge. It's
Hmm.
like you saw some scary stuff on there, but this is what happened, and they're trying to communicate like, and which is I find funny. You have a war movie, which I love war movies, right?
Yeah. Me
I
too.
love them. I think they're great. But here's the thing: most war movies are trying to show you how horrible wars were, so we don't get into another war.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. We don't want
so
to live through
like
that again.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they're not trying to glorify the violence. They're just trying to show us what happened. So hopefully we won't do it
Hmm.
again. So there's a
Hmm.
big difference there.
Yeah. Big difference, and this, like we talked about the other things, it takes me out of a story, it takes me out of a movie so much whenever I see this happen, you
Hmm.
know. And it's happened several times. It's like that was really so unnecessary. That was really out of nowhere.
Hmm.
And it's very much a look what I can do, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't operate like that, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Again,
yeah.
it's like I forget who it was. I was watching someone one time, someone important, that was saying like, does the violence support the story, or is the violence the story?
Yeah.
And
There
so
you go.
there's a difference there.
Hmm.
And it's like, are you trying to make a good movie that has violence in it, or are you trying
Hmm.
to just make a violent movie for the sake of violence? And that's
Yeah.
that's where the line is drawn, like for us.
Hmm. Yes, and like going back to where you talking about the characters, like look what he can do. He's so strong. But I love a story with someone who can do that, but they're conflicted. They don't
Hmm.
want to have to do that, you know. Um, and yeah, the stories
Yeah,
like that go a long way for me
yeah.
than the opposite.
That's like I know you haven't seen this, Gary, and it's totally fine. And I'm sharing a little bit more of my nerdiness. But Avatar: The Last Airbender, like that
Oh, I
cartoon
had that on
series,
my watch list, by the way.
as you should,
Hmm. Hmm.
fantastic show. But the Avatar, Aang, he struggles with that same thing. Like he has the power to just wipe people out, and people keep telling him use your power to wipe them out. And he's like, there's got to be a better way. He's constantly trying to find a better way other than violence to bring peace to the world. Now, he does have to use violence in some scenarios, and he regrets it. It weighs on him throughout the story, and it just brings him a lot of burden. But he's just like, there still has to be a better way, and that's exactly what you're just kind of talking about. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's yes, you may have the power to do so, but it doesn't mean you have to. Like
Yeah.
Spider-Man, great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
Like it is. Like, how are you using your power, and do you not want to
Very
use it?
very Luke Skywalker message too in there.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah,
So
because he's another one. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want
mhm.
to have to kill. So,
Yep. But yeah, those are four of the categories we each look for, whether we're going to view a movie or not.
hmm
Um, there was one time, if you're, and if you don't, there was one time, I don't want to go on a tangent, but Megan and I were on the way to the movies. This is, we had just gotten married, and we
hmm
were going to go see this movie, and we stopped off to check we stopped by a gas station or something. Megan ran in to get a drink, and I was like, you know what, before we go see this, let's just check the content, and it had all of these like severe, 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 and I
yeah,
was like, oh my gosh, and she got back in the car, and I was like, we cannot go see this movie.
yeah,
And I showed her just like the first like three little things I read. She was like, yeah, let's not go see that. And
yeah,
saved myself all the stuff we talked about and a really embarrassing few hours with the wife.
yeah. Something
um,
that'd be hard to come back from, right?
yes, very, very much so.
Yeah,
You know, but
yeah. Yeah, it's true, and it's like, like a point that you had brought up, on our little list here. Some movies are just empty, like
yes,
because movies that will have these kinds of things in it, there is no real story. There's no craft dedication. The
hmm
director, like they're not dedicated to their craft. They're just making a movie. Sometimes it is just like a money grab thing, and so
hmm
they just throw all this stuff in there just for the sake of like, oh, we know people will watch this. Like we said, stuff
hmm
sells, right?
hmm
So movies are just sometimes kind of empty. Like, and so if you do go watch a movie, I mean, we can say all we want, like, oh, I watch a movie doesn't affect me. Everything we
it
look at,
does,
everything we watch affects us in some way,
it
shape, or
does,
form. It
yeah,
may not affect us the same way as other people, but it affects us. It
it
affects the
affects
way we
it.
think. It affects the way we go about our day, like everything.
Mhm. And it might not be immediately, you
hmm
know, but down the road, what we see does affect us, and it
hmm
could be either for the positive, it could be something that could bring us closer to God or not, you know,
hmm
and that's just the truth of it all, and
Yeah.
that's something I heard one time someone say, if before I listen to something, before I watch something, is this going to hinder my relationship with Christ? And if so, it's not worth it. I don't care how entertaining it is,
Yeah.
you know, and empty movies just aren't worth our time,
Yeah.
in my
They're
opinion.
not. They're not. And then and I like the example you have, the know your temptations. How about you tell them that
Mhm.
one, my man?
Yeah, so we all know what tempts us. We all know what is going to lead us down a dark path. And one thing that I used, for one of the youth groups I was a part of years ago, we talking about the story of David and Bathsheba. I'm of the opinion he knew what he was going to see when he went to the rooftop.
hmm
He saw her bathing. They had their bathtubs on the roofs back then to warm the water. He just happened to, it was his palace, his kingdom. He
hmm
happened to wander up there. He saw, Bathsheba bathing, and that he saw it, and what led to an affair, a murder,
hmm
a child born out of wedlock. But avoid the rooftops is something I always tell myself. What are the rooftops of our life? What is something that if we take that step, that can lead us to temptation? But if we just avoid the rooftops, we wouldn't go down that path. You
hmm
know.
Which is why we
Yeah.
have like our categories here. This is why we,
hmm
like we said, like we tell ourselves, and again, like all this stuff too. If you want to apply it, sweet. If not,
Yeah.
like we get it. But like again, this is us, and we're gonna have our game plan. We're gonna do our research. This is why, like, if you may think, well, why aren't they reviewing this movie? Why aren't they talking about this movie? Well, because we did our research. We saw the
Yeah.
rooftops, and we said we're not even gonna go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not gonna review it. We're not gonna talk about it. Because with Hollywood, with movies, the best way to let them know what you want to watch and what kind of content you want to watch is by your dollars.
Yeah.
And so if we don't give them our dollars, then Hollywood will change. And there's a reason why the MCU keeps getting billions of dollars to keep making these movies because we keep showing up to it.
Go see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and why the DC universe has kind of struggled because people aren't showing up to it. Like whatever category. I mean, take Gary's favorite, right? Westerns, right?
Oh,
Westerns.
Western Wednesday coming this week, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeehaw.
But Westerns. How many Westerns back in the day came? But then eventually not as many people kept watching because of space operas and different things. Yeah. So Westerns went by the wayside. So for us, it's like, hey, you tell Hollywood what you want to watch by your dollars. Yeah. And we know for us, it's like, well, we're not going to support this with our money.
Yeah. And it goes, if there's something out there that might offend you, might upset you, might lead you down temptation, the answer simple. Don't watch it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on right now where people want things removed and all that, but just don't watch it. Simple as that. We control what we take in.
Yeah. Yeah. And all this, side note for any Christians watching this, you don't need to be like, boycott this, boycott that. Yeah. Blah. You don't have to get all angry. Like Gary said, just don't watch it. Like it's not that hard. You don't watch it. If enough people don't watch it, guess what? Hollywood says, I guess we won't make this kind of movie anymore. Like that's the best way. Just, you don't have to make this huge argument. You don't have to keep yelling. Yeah. Don't keep yelling boycott. Like, first of all, you're making the rest of us Christians look like morons when you do that crap. But second of all, just don't watch it. It's not that hard. Yeah. And if you know your rooftops, don't go to the rooftop. Like, just don't do it. And that's us. We're not going. So that's what we're looking at. And I think Gary makes a good point. He's like, don't look at the restrictions, but more just like guidelines. Like that's where we're at. Here are our guidelines. Yeah. Here's what we're doing with this channel. We want to be a family-oriented channel because we have families. And we work with families. And so we want to give people reviews and movie updates and things are going on that, we're actually going to see and watch and enjoy. And we can enjoy and talk with our families and church family or whatever. So this is just how we're going to operate and how we're going to move forward with this channel.
Absolutely. Indeed.
There he goes.
Absolutely counter. Yeah. I got one.
Yeah. In Gary's defense, I did it before we went live. So
He did.
So I didn't really make it through.
Yeah. This is the first. We only had one for the show. So,
yeah. Excellent. Righteous. So that's where we're at. And, again, Gary and I talked about it. We're like, hey, we would just want to do another one around this time just to kind of especially with our subscribers early on that we have, which again, thank you for subscribing.
Thank you. Yeah.
And we really appreciate it. Just so you guys know where we're at, what we're doing. We're not going to try to impose any of our beliefs or anything on you. This is just what we're doing. This is what our channel's about. And if you're down with that, excellent. Like, we love it. Thanks. And thanks for supporting us. And again, if people ask you or you want to tell people about us, first of all, thank you again. Second of all, you can tell them, here's what these guys are about.
If you're down with that, we got 2 words for you. Please share.
And subscribe. Oh, and please share and ask them to subscribe.
Yeah. 4 words.
That's right. And turn on the bell. So when things like Western Wednesday come up, you'll be notified.
By the way. I'm still not sure what movie I'm doing, but I know we'll saddle up and have some type of episode, though.
I look forward to it, my man.
Right on.
So... And that'll be one that Gary will probably do on his own because I don't want you guys to have to watch me just sit here and go, because I got nothing.
Got anything to add to that, partner? Nope. Okay.
Did he die? Yes. All right. It's just, let's put it that way. I haven't seen a whole lot of Western. I've seen some. I just haven't seen a whole lot. So, probably the thing, you can laugh at me if you want. Probably the thing I've seen the most because of my dad and grandfather always had it on. Just because it was constant reruns all day on like TV Land or something was Bonanza. That's probably the most Western thing I've seen.
Yeah, I feel like people grew up watching Westerns. It was either Bonanza or Gunsmoke, and we were a Gunsmoke family. We didn't watch much Bonanza, but I mean, obviously, and the theme song is pretty iconic.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and it's just funny to me because it was like I'd come home from school. There's the TV dad or grandpa or somebody. There's And I'm like,
Yeah.
again? And it's like,
how is this still on?
I know. They're like, oh, they're running a marathon all day. And it's like, man, where's Gilligan's Island? Like, if we're going to be watching old stuff, can we watch
There you
something good? And I did not care for Bonanza,
Oh,
but I
man.
ended up watching probably all of it because it was
You
just
watch-
always
hey.
on.
If it's on, it's something,
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandpa, to this day, at 4 o'clock every day, he watches Gunsmoke on TV Land.
Oh,
He has
man.
it. He's seen every episode. He has all the DVDs. It's just what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what he does. So, Yeah.
I got to get home for Gunsmoke. That's what we'll say every time he comes to the house. I got to go home for Gunsmoke. Okay.
all right, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, Pops? Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
I just don't have a whole lot to offer on Western Wednesdays, but it's fine.
Hey,
You get
Yeah.
to see Gary and all of his knowledge of Westerns.
yeah.
Maybe
one day
I'll
we'll
start.
have Monster
Uh-huh.
Monday.
There we go. Now I can do that one.
There we go.
Yeah, Monster Monday or Kaiju. Well, there's nothing that starts with a K. I don't know. But anyways, yeah,
Can make it work.
yeah, we can figure it out. So, but yeah, monster movies. I'll have to get into that. Maybe we can start it. Maybe I can do like a history of monster movies or something leading up to Godzilla versus King Kong,
Oh, there we go. That would be
So,
cool.
which
Boom.
now is until May, so I got time to do some research.
You got time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So thank you guys for being a part with
Yes.
us today. And I know we didn't have a whole lot of advertising leading into this. Hey, holiday weekend. And we
Hey.
knew we had a show, but sometimes it goes that way. But thanks for being here with us. Thanks for being a part of this.
Yep.
And now you guys know where we're at, why we doing what we're doing, and why there'll be certain movies we won't be watching. But there's still plenty of movies we will be watching and talking about. So
Indeed.
Yes.
Right
there's
on.
still plenty. So thanks again. Again, if you are watching, you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. Just a click.
Please do.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Doesn't? No. Just
Boom, and turn on that bell.
ding.
Yeah. And everyone, tell our good man Gary, congratulations on his new headphones. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
Looking like a pro.
I feel okay. So I feel really cool today. Okay. I got my Dolphins hat. Got these new headphones, and I'm wearing the Jordans today. So
Ah,
I
nice.
I walked in the office. I saw Dom. I was like, dude, I feel cool today.
Feeling fly.
Yeah. He said, good for you. So,
Maybe Dom doesn't have that many of those days. Maybe that's why he's just jealous.
could be.
Yeah.
So need to get Dom to watch a movie and come talk about it on the show.
Yeah. Which by the way, there was an update. This is good news for everyone watching. There was an update that we can now have up to 10 people on our live stream with us. Before it was only 6.
Oh, that's cool.
They added
That's
4
cool.
more. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to think through that and start bringing some of our guests online with us.
Do a round table.
Yeah. Talk about some
That'd be fun.
maybe what we should do and go ahead and just get in the muck is have a Star Wars conversation. Get a few people
Mm-hmm.
on here. That would get feisty.
There we go. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, because
That'd
of
be
the
intense.
latest rumors of now the Disney trilogy will no longer be canon.
Ugh.
Can we talk about that? Oh man, we need to get Dom on here. We need to get Denzel on here.
Yeah.
Like we got people.
That would
Maybe
that'd be fun. There's an idea there. Yeah.
yeah. Heck, we could probably do that on Monday. Maybe.
Possibly.
All right,
So,
we'll talk about that and see.
yeah.
So thank you
We'll
guys
see
so
you
much for
next
being
week.
here, and we will see. You'll see Gary on Wednesday, and you'll definitely see us next week, and then you might see us on Friday. I don't know. Depends if we find a movie to watch. There's just not a lot
Yeah.
going on with new movies right now.
Not really. Nope.
So, but at least you get Western Wednesday.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
See ya.